and welcome to this first look exploring session, looking at Amyntas Pastoral by Abraham Fraunce. Well, it's spelled Fraunce, but I assume it's probably just France. I don't know. I have no idea. Based on a work by Tasso. I don't know how much adaptation there is involved in this. It is associated with his patron, Mary Sidney, or Mary Herbert, Countess of Pembroke. Yes, this is an interesting text of which I know very little about, and I'm sort of very curious about how it all functions and pulls together, and how the life in Ivychurch all sort of functions and works as well, which would require me to do more than vaguely Google before I started this. I do know a reasonable amount about Mary Sidney and etc., but I just haven't. This one was not on my radar until very recently, so I'm looking forward to diving into it. Reading today in this pastoral text containing the affectionate life and unfortunate death of Phillis and Amyntas, that in a pastoral, that in a funeral, both in English hexameters. Reading Phillis and Satyr is
Rachael, actor on the East Coast.
Reading Daphne today is
Desna from Lancaster.
Reading Amyntas and also Cupid is
Liza Graham in London.
And reading Thyrsis is
Hi, I'm Tom from Brighton.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be reading stage directions. We should also be joined by Eric a little later on. He's been somewhat delayed, but hopefully he will join us to be the chorus in this text. But before we begin, I'm just going to read the dedication. I don't always read the dedication, but I feel like this might give us some additional data. Yes, so this is to the right, excellent and most honourable lady, the Lady Mary, Countess of Pembroke. If Amyntas found favour in your gracious eyes, let Phillis be accepted for Amyntas' sake. I have somewhat altered Signor Tasso's Italian and Master Watson's Latin Amyntas to make them both one English. But Tasso's is comical, therefore this verse is unusual, yet it is also pastoral, and in effect nothing else but a continuation of euglogues. Therefore no verse fitter than this. For such as generally mislike this reformed kind of verse, as I spake before, so I say still I never heard better argument of them than this. Such an one hath done but ill, therefore no man can do well, which reason is much like their own rhymes in condemning the art for the fault of some artificers. For others that like well of the thing, but not of my peculiar labour herein, mine answer is the same it was. If there were any penalty appointed for him that would not read, he might well complain of me that publish it to be read. But if it be in every man's choice to read it, or not to read, why then not in mine also to publish, or not to publish it? He that will, let him see and read. He that will neither read nor see is neither bound to see nor read. If any begin to read, when he beginneth to take no delight, let him leave off, and go no further. If he follow on in reading without pleasure, let him neither blame me, that did what I could, nor be angry with the thing which hath no sense, but reprehend himself, who would continue in reading without any pleasure taking. Your honour's most affectionate, Abraham Fraunce. I like this man.
That's us told.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, let's actually get into the text of the play itself. There is a prologue by Cupid in a shepherd's cloak.
Who would think that a god lay lurking under a grey cloak? Silly shepherd's grey cloak, and armed with a paltry sheep hook. And yet no petty god, no god that gads by the mountains, but the triumphantest god that bears any sway in Olympus, which many times hath made men murdering Mars to be cursing his blood-sucking blade, and prince of watery empire, earth-shaking Neptune, his three-forked mace to be leaving, and Jove omnipotent as a poor and humble obeisant, his three-flaked lightnings and thunderbolts to abandon. And I believe thus shaped and thus with a mantle adorned, Lady Venus will scarcely find out her wily Cupido. Mine own mother, I hope, will scarce take me for her own son. Ha! She makes me run away, and thus compels me to hide me, for that still she bids, and still commands as a mother, boy and beau and all, and still persuades as a woman. Proud-hearted woman, that I bend my bow to the court still, and as a lord with lords and ladies still be a dwelling. And as for parks and woods, such wooden stuff she referreth unto the wanton wags that wait on lordly Cupido. But let a woman talk, let boys be afraid of a woman. Lord of Love's no boy, although that he seem to be boy-like. I'll bestow myself as best shall seem to my own self. Doves be my mother's birds, but destiny gave to Cupido all in flaming lamp and golden bow for a weapon. Oftentimes do I hide myself and fly from my mother. Not that I owe any suit as a servile slave to my mother, but that I cannot abide to be daily desired by my mother, for to renounce hoblobs and aim at a king or a kaiser. Oftentimes I do fly and shroud myself in a thicket, leaving crystal thrones for bowers and rustical harbors. But no sooner can I convey myself from Olympus, but she begins to demand and ask for lovely Cupido. Where's that wandering boy, that vile boy, lovely Cupido? Search and seek for my boy, my wag, my lovely Cupido. Look for a curl-pated boy, his wings will quickly bewray him. Look for a boy with a lamp and a bow and a quiver about him. Whoso finds my boy, my joy, my lovely Cupido, and brings back my boy, shall have for a friendly remembrance either a sweet, sweet kiss or a somewhat more than a sweet kiss. As though lovely Cupid, to a friend that loves to be silent, neither could nor would allow for a friendly remembrance either a sweet, sweet kiss or somewhat more than a sweet kiss. And I believe my kiss, if love intend to be lovely, will be a sweeter kiss to a lass than Queen Cytherea's. Thus, many times in vain she seeks for lovely Cupido. Loving girls are loath to bewray their lovely Cupido. And yet, to be more secure, my curled locks I do curtail, my wings are laid down, my bow and quiver abandoned, weapons all set aside, and yet love stands not unarmed. For this staff that seems but a toy that I bear for a fashion is love's lamp indeed, and bears but a show of a sheep hook. Love transformed lamp with most invincible ardor, most invisible heat, and secret ardor abounding. Though in form but rude and gold head seems to be wanting, whoso feels his force shall find it not to be pointless. Where it lights, it works, and leaves impression endless. This blunt dart shall give that cureless wound to the heart root of loveless damsel. Most loveless damsel amongst all those loveless damsels that wait on mighty Diana. Phillis, that's her name. Disdainful wench of 1,000, shall in her hardest heart conceive as mighty a love's wound as was that I made in tender breast of Amyntas. Now many pleasant springs are past since young lad Amyntas and young girl Phillis themselves were wont to be sporting. Now to be gathering flowers, and filberts now to be cracking, now to be laying gins for birds, and now to be angling, and yet that this blow may make more forcible entrance and more speedily pierce, I'll stay and look for a fit time, when pity moves her mind and makes her breast to be tender. Then will I strike and wound. And that this lovely beginning may as luckily end, I'll talk and walk as a herdsman, and so insinuate myself to the company rural of these jolly shepherds, which hither now be repairing, all in a brave merriment Dame Flora's wakes to be keeping, with their garlands green and boughs of myrtle adorned. Here, even here, will I make that most incurable heart's wound, which no mortal eye shall see. Then lovely Cupido's fame in these woods shall be resounding. These woods then shall feel a triumphant power to be present, and perceive that I work by myself and not by my servants. Noble thoughts will I send, and high conceits will I breathe forth into the lowliest minds, and frame their voice to a sweeter and more sugared tune. For wheresoever I harbor, wheresoever I keep, I'll still be the lovely Cupido, as well in Hoblob's heart as in heart of a king or a kaiser. And as I list, I do make an unequal mind to be equal, and this is my only joy. And herein most do I glory, that by the quickening heat, by the fire of lovely Cupido, oaken pipe contends with learned lute of a lordling. Which, if my mother, who scorns that I am thus a wandering here and there by the woods, cannot conceive to be wondrous, then she's blind herself, and not sweet lovely Cupido, whom some blind fools have blind boy unworthily called.
And what falls there? I'm really enjoying this text so far. This is dancing along really nicely. That was fun. That gives a performance. There's some steamy stuff in there. Either a sweet kiss or somewhat more than a sweet kiss.
I don't know what we can put on stage.
Yeah, I mean this is and that's yeah. There's a lot dancing through. I mean, it explains the plot. It gives some backstory. It gives character. I wish there was more Cupid in this. I don't think there is that much Cupid in this. But great get a Cupid here. Any thoughts from the room before we move on? Rachael, and then Tom. No, Rachael. The thought's gone. The thought's gone. Thumph out. Tom.
Yeah, no, it danced along beautifully, and it set a wonderful, energetic tone to the whole show, to the beginning, and yeah, it was impetus, energy, which was very infectious.
Mm. Yeah,
and beautifully read, by the way.
Yeah, no, it was yeah, it felt good. It felt good. Okay, that's good.
Rachael raised her hand again.
No, it's just agreeing, I think. Unless Rachael is raising her hand. Unmute yourself and speak, Rachael. Say something.
No, I was gonna say I was thinking of maybe I'll save it, but I'll just say it now. There were like I think during the German Renaissance, like around 15 something, they were doing a lot of this like satyr and pastoral imagery, and I wonder if that, you know, besides that this is a pastoral as a genre, if the people of this time were seeing, you know, copies or you know, works of like satyrs and pastorals and things like that, because it was a whole like movement from like you know, from the northern Europe, where they would do that, because I think they were still very wooded, and it was a sort of like national message that they were trying to get out and have abroad.
That's a good question. Yeah. I don't know what the way the various art movements and various sort of literary movements intersect, and also intersect across the continent as well. I don't know the answer to that, but it's a really good thought. Liza, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, this is so much fun. Second of all, I like that everyone's using the word dance to describe this verse, and that is what it does. That we're in hexameter here, but these are classical hexameters. So there isn't a fixed foot. It's not fixedly iambic or trochaic or anapestic. It's just that there are 6 stresses per line. So sometimes you get 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. So it does dance, and it's just keeping that pace and letting it dance, I guess, dance off your tongue. I also appreciate that Cupid has forsworn his usual weapons, the bow and arrow, and the lamp. I haven't heard a lot about Cupid having a lamp, but I guess, or a torch. Maybe he has a torch to kindle hearts, that sort of thing. Anyway, so he's forsaken his usual weapons, and he's carrying this shepherd's staff, which again seems kind of phallic. Still talking about piercing hearts, but with a staff. And he also, he doesn't want to be treated as a boy. He wants to be his own man. Though the actor playing him would almost certainly be a boy. But also, I like how he has this line about, I'm the god of love, and I'm no boy, but I'm boy-like. So, that's kind of fun, a little bit of gender weirdness in this speech. Well, anyway, those were my thoughts.
Well, yeah, and just to link into 2 thoughts that bounce off for me. One of which, I don't know what the performance auspices for this are, because it would have probably been a private performance. So who was playing it? Could have been anyone within if it was performed, it may have been designed just as a literary text, but if it was performed, it could be performed by anybody, because it's presumably being performed in Ivychurch or in the region thereabouts. So there is an interesting question about who would be playing who. It might be even a family thing where various people are reading it. So when it comes to saying, oh, maybe boy players will be playing the women in a moment, well, no, actually, it could just be women. I don't know. There might be actual proper research on this. I genuinely don't know. But it's the other thing that's leaping to my mind is going, why the hell is this form not being used for English comedy? Because it's exactly, it feels very stage functional, and I think maybe it's a shame that this verse form isn't being used anywhere. Pretty much, I don't think it really turns up in any plays that we've really done at all. I'm trying to think of any. Amidst a lot of experimentation with various verse forms, we're in the early 1590s at the moment, and it feels like this is a missed opportunity. I could be wrong on that, but who knows? We may find we get bored of it very, very quickly, so I could be horribly wrong. Rachael.
This is just another thing, and I don't know if it's something that matters in performance or anything like that, but that Cupid refers to himself as Cupido. This is again my astrology stuff, but in modern astrology they have there's like an asteroid called Cupid, but then there's Cupido, and Cupido is supposed to be more like lust. So what I'm trying to say is, because there's that in astrology, and because this Cupido here is so much like phallic symbols, it makes me think of the names differently that the writers are using, like how sometimes people use Venus or they use Aphrodite, how he's using Cupido here, or Cupid. And was there in this era a different poetic connotation to using these different names, besides just to fit the meter of the verse form that they're choosing?
Well,
that might be, yeah.
It's a great suggestion, because we have had Cupido before in some text, so I wonder if there is a different variant. Sorry, Liza.
It is. It's he's adapting an Italian text here, so I'm guessing the slightly Italianified version of Cupid might come from that, but it's also a sort of fancier and more playful way to refer to it. And I think maybe you're right. Maybe the Italian version is more lustful. Who knows? In Italian, one rather than saying Cupido, often they will say amore. They'll just call him love. But then in English, they also sometimes just call him love. Sometimes you don't know whether talking about love the winged blind god or love the feeling. So that's also it'll be something to watch for as we read through this.
Yes. Okay, we're about to go into Act 1, Scene 1. I don't know if Eric, you want to join the room and say hello to everyone now that you're here. I don't know. Is he going to appear? One can never be certain whether one has said the right incantation. Eric has appeared. Eric, introduce yourself to the room.
Hi, I'm Eric. I'm just wiping slime off my face, which I'm eating. No, it's not slime, but anyway. Yeah, I'm here. So I'm just going to disappear to eat the rest of my food, slime, and come back in a minute. That's okay.
We will see.
I have no idea what's going on, but as far as I can gather, there is no sort of action at the moment, except the fact that Cupid has stepped on stage and done a prologue of sorts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Cupid has basically set up what the plot will be, but the plot hasn't happened yet, so you'll get to enjoy the plot. Okay. So Act 1, Scene 1. Enter Daphne and Phillis.
What? Will Phillis then consume her youth as an anchoress, scorning dainty Venus? Will Phillis still be a modern and not care to be called by the dear sweet name of a mother? Will not Phillis joy to behold herself in a Phillis, and her true love's face and a young boy's face to be shining? Change this mind, fond wench, and this resolution alter.
Seek the delights of love, who list, if love be delightful. This life is my love, my bow and shafts be my treasure. Hunting is my joy, with stubborn beasts to be striving, until I fell them down, and fearful beasts to be chasing. And till woods want beasts, and quiver feathered arrows, Phillis shall not want any sweet sports or pretty pastimes.
Fine sweet sports indeed for a girl, and wise pretty pastimes, still to be killing beasts, and still by the woods to be ranging. This life, toilsome life, for a while doth seem to be pleasant only because as yet thou hast not tried any other. To those simple souls that lived when Jove was an infant, took for pleasant drink and meat well worthy a man's mouth, streams of purling brooks and nut-brown kernel of acorn. But now streams of brooks and nut-brown kernel of acorn are condemned as drink and meat, but fit for a beast's mouth, since that corn and grapes were once known how to be used. If thou couldst, nay, wouldst, and who would not but a fonking, only but one time taste, and but taste only the thousandth part of those pleasures and joys which still be abounding in true lover's soul, when he feels himself to be loved, thou wouldst quickly repent, and quickly bewray thy repentance, and say thus with tears, each loveless life is a luckless and accursed life. My best days vainly be ended, flowering time is gone, and age creeps hastily onward. How many fruitless nights, poor fool, did I waste as a widow? How many joyless days as a nun did I draw to the evening? Days to be passed away with winged boys' pretty pastimes, nights to be spent with toys and joys of lovely Cupido. Pastimes, toys and joys, which more joy breed me the more love. Change this mind, fond wench, and this resolution alter.
When that I seem to repent, or seem to bewray my repentance, or so say with tears, let floods run back to the fountains. Let wolves fly from the lamb, and trembling hare to the grey hound. Let bears range by the sea, and dolphins swim by the desert.
See what it is to be young. Girls always used to be peevish. So was I in times past. Good time ill past. When I wanted age and experience, and so did I trudge to the forest. Golden locks, cherry lips, red white face, ivory fingers, proud as a praised peacock, and so did I trudge to the forest. Nets were then my delight, and bended bow my rejoicing, pointed darts my joy, and slaughtered beasts my triumphing. If I saw myself unluckily self-wild, but by a glance, one glance of a lover's eye to be noted, down did I hang my head and bow mine eyes to my bosom, so displeased forsooth, and God, what, greatly abashed, when my freezing face to a love's look brought any pleasure, as though 'twere some fault or shame, or mocked my own self for to be looked upon, to be loved, and sought for of others. But what can not time effect? What can not a lover's continual wooing, long-serving, daily deserving, bring by degrees at length, to a fortunate ending? Phillis, I must confess, at last I began to be yielding unto a love's conquest, and these arms made me be yielding. Long patience, kindness, sighs, tears, importunate askings. Then did a night, one short night, teach me a lesson, which many a thousand days would never let me be learning. Then did I quickly repent, and quickly bewray my repentance, and say thus with tears, now farewell, mighty Diana, bows and shafts I renounce, and brutish life I abandon. So I do hope one day thy gentle-minded Amyntas shall with abundant tears make thy hard heart to be tender. Why should I not hope when I see... And why should I not hope when I see just matter of hoping? Is not Amyntas fair? Is he not loved of many lasses? Doth not he love Phillis? Yet Phillis loves not Amyntas. And yet, alas, neither thy hate nor love of another can withdraw his love. And if thou look to thy gentry, as sweet Sidippa is known to be truly thy mother, Sidippa daughter to the sacred god that abideth in this silver brook, so hapless father of Amyntas was good Silvanus, Silvanus' son to the great Pan, Pan the shepherd's great god that rules and reigns by the forest. And if Phillis chanced to behold her face in a mountain, Phillis will not seem more fair than fair Amaryllis. And Amaryllis fair loves gentle-minded Amyntas. And Amaryllis' love is still condemned of Amyntas. For that, Phillis, love still rests in soul of Amyntas, although Phillis, alas, hates her true lover Amyntas. Now, suppose for a while, God grant it prove but to suppose, that Phillis' sour looks drive off this love of Amyntas, and Amaryllis' love draw on this love of Amyntas, and that Amyntas kiss, and embrace Amaryllis, and laugh at Phillis. What then will Phillis imagine?
Well, let Amyntas deal as seemeth best to Amyntas, and love somewhere else. His love hath made me to hate him.
Love breed hate? Sweet sire of a most unnatural offspring and vile degenerate bastard. But when will a white swan hatch any coal-black crow, or meek sheep foster a tiger?
Daphne, leave this talk, or look no more for an answer. His love breeds my hate, when I hate to afford what he loveth. He's not a friend, but a foe, that my virginity seeketh.
Why then, stiff-necked bull is a foe, not a friend to a heifer, and to a turtle dove not a friend, but a foe is a turtle. Why then sweet springtime breeds hate and works many mischiefs, sweet smiling springtime that wills each thing to be loving, world and all in world. Oh, see how sweetly the pigeon there with a murmur sweet his cock's mate, sweet is a wooing. Mark that nightingale, which hops from the briar to the hawthorn. Hark, how bravely she sings. I do love and love to be lovely. Nay, even sell serpents with cursed poison abounding. Strong and sturdy lions and tigers fierce be a loving, and yet Phillis, alas, Phillis more fierce than a tiger, worse than a wild lioness, and more unkind than a serpent. Phillis lives still alone and cannot abide to be lovely. But strong, sturdy lions, fierce tigers, slippery serpents have sense and feeling, and therefore no wonder at all. Serpents, sturdy lions and tigers, fierce be a loving. Oh, then look to the trees and learn of them how to be lovely. Look to the senseless trees and mark how dearly the vine tree loves her loving elm and clips him fast with 1,000 embracements. And beech tree cleaves to the beech tree, and wild ash to the ash, and pine tree leans to the pine tree. Yea, that broad-branched oak which stands so sturdily pitched and seems rude and rough, not moved with a storm or a tempest, yields to a kind of love. And if thou were but a little touched with love, thou mightst perceive his lovely bewailings and secret groanings. And wilt thou then be for all this worse than a senseless tree, and never learn to be lovely? Change this mind, fond wench, and this resolution alter.
Well, when I see trees weep and hear their lovely bewailings and secret groanings, I'll frame myself to be loving.
'Tis but a folly, I see, to be wasting wind on a proud girl that knows naught herself and will not learn of another. Thou that makest but a jest of love hereafter, I doubt not wilt full sore lament and find all true that I tell thee. When thou shalt for shamelessly back from the watery fountains, back from the springs where now thou seest thy face to be shining, for very shame and grief to behold thy beauty decayed and face all wrinkled, that's bad, but that's but a common mischief. Look in time that a worse plague light not upon thee. I'll say naught, but I woe what news were truly reported by sage Elphinus last day to the lovely Lycoris. And he reported afore Corydon and Alphesiboas, 2 great masters of love's laws, and he reported in fair Aurora's great cave, whose beautiful entrance hath these words engraved by the hand of lovely Cupido. This place is sacred for lovers only appointed. There, Elphinus said, and said that he heard it of old time, of that great pastor, great man whose sweetly resounding pipe did pass from the fields and sang of martial horrors. How in hell's deep pit foul fiends have framed a dungeon, all as black as pitch and all as dark as an oven, hard by the joyless banks where smokes and fogs be arising from wailing Acheron. And there these no pity-taking dames and scornful girls are all condemned to be plagued, all tormented there in dungeons ugly forever. Their fit place, fair walks for Phillis shall be prepared. There shall fogs and mists and smokes and palpable horror bring out tears from her eyes and force her still to be wailing, whom no lover's smart, no grief could make to be weeping.
Good sweet Daphne, peace, and tell this again to Lycoris. Terrify babies with bugs. It's time to be gone to the hunting. Solemn great hunting which this same day is appointed, in that pleasant park, that sweetest park of 1,000, Ivychurch's park. Pretty Ivychurch that on hilltop, flowering hilltop sits, and looketh down to the valleys. There, oh, there, I do hear, for so Philavevia told me, there that nymph, brave nymph, that peerless Pembrokiana, Ivychurch's nymph doth mean herself to be present, and with her own person give grace and life to the past time. All to my wonted well with crystal water abounding. There will I leave this dust and sweat that I got by my toiling. Yesterday, when I made that light foot dough to be tumbling.
And I'll home for an hour or two, and then to the hunting. Then to the park we'll go. In the meantime, mark what I told thee. More than parks and wells, and if simplicity bind thee, know thy not knowing, so mayst thou know of another.
Excellent. We're going straight into Act 1, Scene 2. Enter Amyntas And Thyrsis. Amyntas, are you there?
Hollow caves, ragged rocks, waste hills, green, watery fountains, for pity sweetly reply, and answers make to my mourning. Strong oak, tall pine tree, green laurel, beautiful yew, for pity sweetly reply, and answers make to my mourning. Shake their leaves for grief, and bend their boughs to my groaning. Only that one in whom my joys are only reposed yields no lovely reply, no answer makes to my mourning. Phillis, fair and fierce, Phillis more fierce to Amyntas than strong oak, tall pine, green laurel, beautiful yew, hollow caves, ragged rocks, waste hills, green watery fountains, where black-mantled night makes everything to be silent, everything at rest, then wandereth restless Amyntas. Silver moon, bright stars, you knew these heavy bewailings, and for grief your course and due revolution altered. But alas, she grieves not, takes no compassion on me, whose heart-cheering face and sweet illuminate eyesight, silver moon, bright stars, all your bravery stained, and made you for shame your due revolution alter.
Harmless sheep and lambs eat grass, and greedy devouring wolves eat harmless sheep and lambs. But surly Cupido feeds himself on streams of abounding tears, and never filled, and yet stands ever a-feeding.
No, no, Thyrsis, alas, love lacks no tears of Amyntas. Surly Cupid's full, stuffed full with tears of Amyntas, and thirsts now for blood, seeks blood of woeful Amyntas, and what he seeks he shall have. I'll quench their thirst by my heart blood. Blind boys, proud girls thirst, and glut their eyes with abundant streams of purpled gore of too wretched Amyntas.
Oh, bloody word, foul word! Oh, God forbid that Amyntas should or think or work and any outrage unto Amyntas. Cast off these fancies, leave these toys, pluck up a man's heart. If bonny Phillis scorn and make but a mock of Amyntas, yet shall Amyntas find as brave girls as bonny Phillis.
Find brave girls? Oh, grief! If Amyntas find not Amyntas, how can he find others? Oh, how shall he find bonny lasses if that he lose himself? Oh, how shall I seek any other, since my settled soul and heart are like to an aged and well-grounded tree, which now is come to the full growth and will rather break than bend or yield to be turned. Hate augments my love, her frowns give fire to my fancy, as gentle spaniel whom beating makes to be loving.
Fear in a fearful man frets more than plagues that he feareth. Hope and have in time any man may gain any woman. Long time mighty lions at length have brought to the bridle, and wildest tigers at length are tamed in a long time.
Yea, but alas, long time's too long for wretched Amyntas. Death must speedily speed. No wretch can abide any long time.
Stay but a while. No doubt these things will mend in a short time. Thou knowest that women by kind are mutable ever. Soon hot and soon cold, like and mislike in a moment, change as a weathercock, and all as light as a feather. But let Thyrsis now know more at large of Amyntas, his distressed state, for Thou toldest me a great while since that love gave first occasion unto thy torments, that the proud Phillis gave fresh increase to thy sorrows. Yet whence this love sprang, who was that Phillis, I knew not. And sith so many years, what have lived so friendly together, and applied ourselves to the laws of learned Apollo, there cause thy Thyrsis should know these things Amyntas, which his Amyntas knows, and will show only Thyrsis.
Know, O Thyrsis, then, know this mine infinite anguish, which these hills well know, which these sweet watery wells know, and yet no man knows. My fatal hour is approaching. My death draws so near that now it's time to provide some friend, which may and will be reporter of death and death's cause, which will for a friendly remembrance, death and cause of death engrave in bark of a beech tree, hard by the damned place where corpse of murdered Amyntas, bloodless corpse, shall lie, that when that brave, bonny damsel, that pitiless Phillis, shall chance that way to be passing, her proud foot, and yet sweet foot, may joy to be treading and trampling these baleful bones of Amyntas, and that serpent's tongue thus take a delight to be vaunting. This death is my triumph, these bruised bones my trophaeum, that such strange travelers as this way chance to be wandering, and foreign pastors that pass by the grave of Amyntas, may know this conquest, and make it known to the country. And perchance, oh no, that's too good for Amyntas, yet perchance, one day may once come when bonny Phillis, when bonny, sweet Phillis, now moved with a lovely repentance, lovely remorse, may take some small compassion on me, and when 'tis too late, lament this loss of Amyntas, shedding some sweet tears for death of murdered Amyntas, his death whom when he lived herself did cause to be dying, saying, oh, that he were not a murdered Amyntas. Oh, that he lived now, and were my lover Amyntas. But now, hark and mark of cares and woe the beginning.
Stay on then, for I hark and mark perchance to a better end than thou thyself canst yet conceive or imagine.
When that I was but a wag, young wag, so young that I could scarce reach mine outstretched arm to the bending boughs of a plum tree, 'twas my luck, ill luck, to acquaint myself with a brave girl, bravest girl that spreads her golden locks to the tender wind, fair Phillis, I mean, but alas, what meant I to mean her? Phillis, a flame to the soul, and Phillis, a flower to the forest. Phillis, a townish girl's disgrace and grace to the country. Phillis, a fame to the park, and Phillis, a shame to the palace. Phillis, that first made Sidippe for to be a mother. Phillis, that first made that rich Montanus a father. With that Phillis I was, most woeful was when I am not. With that Phillis I lived, oh, luckless, lived when I lived not. Phillis, a turtle dove, and faithful turtle Amyntas. Both our bowers were nigh, which made us both to be neighbors. Both our minds more nigh, which caused us both to be friendly. Both our ages like, which first was cause of a liking. Both our lives more like, which still gave fire to a fancy. If that Amyntas were disposed for to be fishing, Phillis a fishing went. If Amyntas meant to be fowling, Phillis a fowling went. If Phillis longed for a filbert, younker Amyntas climbed. If Phillis would be a hunting, who but Amyntas then, but green coat huntsman Amyntas? Either's sport was like, and either's portion equal. But when Amyntas thus bestowed himself on his angling, other baits and hooks took secret hold of Amyntas, whilst that Amyntas thus laid traps and snares for a red breast, white breast laid mute snares and hidden traps for Amyntas, whilst that Amyntas, I say, ran pricking after a pricket, Far more poisoned darts have pricked heart root of Amyntas, for by degrees there grew as an herb that grows of her own self. In my breast there grew, but I wist not whence, a desiring still to be with Phillis, poor fool, and still to be gazing on those burning lamps, when still I sucked a sweetness, strange kind of sweetness, which ended still with a sourness. Oftentimes I did sigh, yet knew no cause of the sighing, and was a lover afore that I knew what 'twas to be loving. But now, Thyrsis, I know, and mark, I'll tell thee the manner.
Say on, Amyntas, then. This matter's worthy the marking.
Once on a day, oh dismal day of 1,000, once on a summer's day, oh, summer worse than a winter, under a beech, oh, beech of Amyntas, woe the beginning. Phillis sat her down, and down sat Cassiopeia, and I between them both. When a bee that gathered honey here and there from the flowers conveys herself in a moment unto the red rose cheek of smiling Cassiopeia, and there bites and bites fair cheek of Cassiopeia, thinking, sure as I think, her red rose cheeks to be roses. Bee bites, biting smarts, and smarting Cassiopeia wringeth her hands and cries. But peace, said my bonny Phillis. Cassiopeia, be still, cry not, sweet Cassiopeia. I'll with a word or two soon cause thy pain to be ceasing. I'll soon charm thy cheek. This secret lately I learned of Beldan Sagane for an ivory comb that I gave her. Then she applies her lips, life-giving lips to a lover, and yet alas, life-taking lips from a lover, unto the smarting cheek of whining Cassiopeia, and with a sweet, sweet sound her spells she begins to be mumbling. By and by, strange thing, her pain was past in a moment, whether charming words did work so mighty a wonder, or that Phillis' mouth, which rather may be believed heals where it toucheth, by some great grace of Apollo. Then, whereas afore I desired but to be seeing, heart-inflaming eyes, I desired but to be hearing, soul-invading voice, sweet voice, and like to the purling streams of a silver brook that creeps with a lovely resounding murmur among small stones, or like to the daintily warbling noise of a gentle wind that makes green leaves to be trembling, then, alas, did I long and look and wish to be joining this my mournful mouth to the mouth of my bonny Phillis. And in fine, I devised, love finds out wily devices, how to obtain my desire. For I feigned that a wasp from the bushes flew to my face in a rage, and poor lips all to be stinged. And my doleful looks did look and crave to be charmed, though my tongue was afraid and made no suit to the charmer. Then simple Phillis, who took my tale for a gospel, came of her own accord and joined her lips to my sore lip. Sore sick lip, God knows, but alas, while Phillis, a feigned wound with sweet lips healed, her sweet lips gave me a true wound, gave me a mortal wound that ran from the lips to the liver, nay, immortal wound that pierced from the mouth to the marrow. No busy bee can suck more sweet and sugared honey from sweet-smelling flowers than was distilled from the roses of cherry-lipped Phillips by the boiling breath of Amyntas. Although bashful fear was somewhat a curb to my kisses and restrained my joys, which made me the more to desire that poisoned, bitter, sweet, and fain yet again that I smarted, that with Philip's lips my lips might freshly be charmed. And so charmed I was, so stinged, so deadly bewitched, so sore enchanted with spill-soul spells that I must needs either break my heart or break my love to my Phillis. This breaking of love was a love's break. Better it had been heart's break or neck's break to the sore heart-wounded Amyntas. Once on a time, when nymphs and pastors chanced to be sporting, standing all in a round, and each one whispered a secret into another's ear. Poor fool, I began to be buzzing. Phillis, I burn with love. Oh, take compassion on me. Help, or I die, Phillis. But Phillis, straight with a lowering look and frowning face and downcast eyes to the groundward, blushed for spite and shame, and gave not a word for an answer, but conveyed her away and flew from the place in a fury. From that time, no time would Phillis abide with Amyntas, lend no eyes to the tears, no ears to the plaints of Amyntas. And now flaxen wheat hath his ripened stalk to the sickle hath 3 times yielded. Now cheerful spring to the forest flowering boughs have brought 3 times, and flowers to the meadow. And each thing but death long since was tried by Amyntas for to appease Phillis. My death now only remaineth for to appease Phillis, which death should soon be procured. So that I were once sure that I should by my deadly departure wring any tears from her eyes, or bring any joy to her hard heart, make her weep or laugh, and whether I should be wishing. Indeed, Phillis' tears and mind with mercy relenting were far better amends for death of murdered Amyntas, and more friendly reward for luckless love of Amyntas. But that I may not wish sweet Phillis mine to be grieved, nor Phillis' fair face and eyes with tears to be blubbered.
And what madman, can think it possible, if that once she did hear these plaints, but that she'll yield to be loving?
Oh, good Thyrsis, I doubt, for I never gin to be speaking, but she recoils from my words, as subtle snake from the charmer.
Doubt not. I hope ere long I'll cause her friendly to hear thee.
If thou get that I speak, then naught shall I get but my speaking. Mopsus, alas, Mopsus foretold my destiny long since. Soothsayer Mopsus, that knows what mystery, secret, and hidden virtues in stones and herbs be abiding, and by the flight and chirp of birds can tell many wonders.
What, that concerning squire? That blokes and brokes and sells to the old wives, pelting pells in a box, and so scrapes a coin from the country. Hope yet, Amyntas, a while, for I know there's a matter of hoping, only because Mopsus says there's no matter of hoping. Hope, and meeting me again in this same space, for I doubt not but that in 1/2 hour I'll bring good news to Amyntas.
Exeunt Amyntas and Thyrsis. Enter the chorus.
O sweet age of gold, not sweet, for that by the pastures every brook and bush with milk and honey abounded, nor that fertile ground until untouched was affording fresh increase of fruit to the poor man's daily rejoicing, nor that stingless snakes and harmless slippery serpents slided abroad by the fields and never breathed any poison, nor that cloudless skies seemed forevermore to be smiling, and eternal spring, her springtime, daily renewing, nor that no pine trees as yet cut down from the mountains ranged abroad by the rocks with salt waves all to be dashed, but sweet age of gold, for that this name of a nothing, idle name of naught, and daily deceivable idol, which fools afterward, fine fools, have made to be honored, was nor named nor known, nor brought new laws to the country, and poor countrymen whose lives were only directed by sweet nature's law. Sweet nature taught them a lesson: if you will, you may, and straight-laced rules did abandon. Then by the green-mantled pastures and watery fountains, love's young wanton wags were always wont to be singing, and had no light lamps and no dangerous arrows. Then brave jolly shepherds and nymphs sat sweetly together, tempering words with smiles, and every smile with a kissing. Nymphs were not so nice, but that they yielded a full view of their bared breasts to the searching eyes of a lover. The girls were not so coy, but that they would, with a younker, friendly together wash and bathe themselves in a river. On our first covered wellspring of lovely Cupid, Honor plucked water from scorched mouth of a lover. Honor taught fair eyes their glittering beams to be hiding, and to the darkened soul their light unkindly denying. Honor caught in nets those golden locks that in old time were least loose to the wind, dispersed along by the shoulders. Honor marred our mirth, and love lays turned to a silence, and all our pastimes to a solemn gravity changed. Honor taught us first our mouths by art to be moving, looks by a looking glass, and gait with skill to be framing. Honor called it a theft, which first was counted a free gift. Honor made it a crime, which first was thought but a pastime. But thou, supreme lord of love, thou only monarch, which rulest mighty monarchs, what dost thou here in a corner? For so great a godhead, oh, too simple a corner. Go to a proud diadem, to a golden crown, to a scepter. Break those great men's sleep. So shall thy fame be greater. Disgrace not thyself with poor contemptible objects, but let country fools live as they used to be living. Let them live in love, whilst they have time to be loving. Sun sets and riseth, goes down and quickly reviveth, but man's light once out, eternal darkness abideth. Then let country fools live as they used to be living. Let them live in love, whilst they have time to be loving.
So that is Act 1. There's a lot to like in this. There is stuff to be a bit critical of, but there's a lot to like in this. We've got Daphne saying to Phillis, sex is fun. Being a nun is less fun. Perhaps, maybe consider your life choices. And Amyntas telling her, I mean, if you drill down into it, Amyntas' story is not cool. He sort of, oh look, there's a bee sting. Oh, you have to kiss my lips better. Yeah, not cool, man. I kind of forgive it because of the verse and the stuff, but yeah, I could sort of understand why Phillis is perhaps going no. So yeah, I was saying earlier, why have we not had this first form before? I'm starting to figure out why. It is leading to a certain kind of excess in the repetition. There are sort of feels like the lines feel padded out occasionally, and that sometimes the repetition is good and deliberate, and sometimes it's just like, well, no, we're just going to invert the line just to make sure that we're filling out the line sometimes. But I'm still liking it. I'm still liking the energy. I think there's a lot here, and there's a lot of horny energy here. It has to be said. I also, before I go around the room, one other thing is its location. It is locating itself in Ivychurch, in this place. So if we're talking about, performance, it's written for a space. So that is really interesting, and what that's saying about the people who might be involved in its creation as well, because yes, it's written by this chap Abraham Fraunce from an Italian original, but it's very much for his patron, Mary, Countess of Pembroke, and that relationship's really interesting and exciting, and yeah, that's one of the reasons I'm really keen to do this text. Liza.
Yeah, that I mean, Mary, Countess of Pembroke, was astonishing. She was an incredibly intelligent person. She spoke a whole bunch of languages, including Greek and Latin. She was a scholar. She was, in some ways, just as much of a prodigy as her brother, Sir Philip Sidney, who died young. Mary lived a long life. But yes, Ivychurch is a town in Kent, I think, and presumably it was a place that she liked to go hunting, because that they mention that Phillis, the nymph of Diana, Artemis, the huntress, that they're going to hunt there, and that the peerless Pembrokiana Ivychurch's nymph doth mean herself to be present, and with her own person give grace and life to the pastime. And I think if she were not a huntress, then our heroine would also not be a huntress. Yeah, fascinating person, Mary Sidney, later Mary Herbert.
Yes, translator of the Tragedy of Antony, which we have read on this podcast, and which a full cast audio adaptation is in the works. We will keep coming back to Mary Sidney, and there is other Mary Sidney stuff to read as well. But obviously, this is Mary Sidney in the form of a patron who also effectively commissions Cleopatra from Samuel Daniels. So, and that feels like what this is as well. That this is feels like her fingerprints possibly are all over this, and that makes me happy. Tom?
I agree the text is slightly sometimes padded out, but as a performer you can really, the second or third time you can really put it on. You can actually just, it fits so beautifully. So it can be really wrangled, and it's quite exciting for a performer, I think, to have such a text.
Yeah, the repetition often makes it. There's some really good repetition in there that's really really fun. I think there might be a point when the number of times we've heard the name Phillis does start, and Amyntas, but I can live with that. That's the form of the thing. Rachael, then Eric.
Yeah, I was looking up information about those plants that they were mentioning, like yew, oak, laurel, pine. They're all evergreen, and just the constancy. He's emphasizing the constancy of his love. He's emphasizing, and then when he says beech, apparently that's used to make a bunch of furniture and like firewood and floorboards and things like that. So there's like a certain imagery that you could get from it, when he's saying like she could walk on my bones, that it's almost like somebody's made a fireplace or a fire outside and then put it out, and she'll just walk through an abandoned campsite or something, like these evocations of somebody just walking through a garden. Or what do you call it, other things, and like even that the Cassiopeia plant, it I guess is nicknamed a lipstick plant because of the way it looks, how red it is, and that the little bulbs look like lipstick tubes. So they kind of bring us through like this interesting imagery, and the way you kind of have like the color green through it, and then you hit red with that Cassiopeia plant. And then starting there, he goes into this very lustful imagery, but then also like snake imagery, where it's kind of like accusing her of being a temptress, but saying her words sting. And there's kind of like, we get this idea of just how much she doesn't like him. And it kind of reminds me of the Castle of Perseverance or whatever, when we were saying like how all the other sins were emphasized, like what the sin does to the person, except for lust, which is the object, not the subject of lust, is usually portrayed. And I don't know, I think there's something interesting in that. And I think what Tom was saying, I think if you go over this a couple times as an actor, you could really have a suite of music kind of going on, like a sort of aria, and really dive into that imagery, because I think it's giving you like different acts, different scenes, just in that monologue right there, that even though it's so vast, that you could really work on it. And I think you could really do something with that and figure that out to really bring all of that to an audience without maybe seeming like too much, like it might be in a first reading, because I spent so much of my time going out and trying to see what the symbolism or the imagery that he was trying to evoke with those trees that he kept saying.
Yeah, and it is a text that, I mean, it's managing to be to conjure images and do all these things. It is also telling stories, and it's telling those stories quite effectively. It's not like I'm getting lost in the storytelling. Most of the time, I know what's going on. The repetitions are helping for that, and the fact that the story is relatively simple. There's also, I'm just wondering whether it's leaning on the John Lilly pun that's used in, I think it's in Sappho and Phao, because they're talking about all these trees and then it just ends on beautiful you, rather than the tree as in her, as in thing. I don't think it quite fits within this thing, but it's just the you as in, yeah, it works quite nicely in other ways. Eric, you had thoughts?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that the repetition is, well, I mean, aside from like, helping you home, belabor the point of it's Phillis, we get the point. Just the alliteration is hard not to stumble over. Like, as an actor, I can see how it would be helpful to memorize like stingless snakes and harmless slippery serpents, but it's like it can be quite a mouthful to say. Clearly Hemingway did not edit this text. Yeah, I don't know, just kind of, it's interesting what he's doing with this, because this isn't the usual. I mean, he's already confessed love to Phillis, so this is like the aftermath of the sort of confession, whereas usually you get this whole thing of how can I tell her I love her, I don't know how, I have no words, so on and so forth, whereas he kind of tricked her into it, which, I mean, yeah, you wouldn't really do that. I mean, I can see why Phillis doesn't like him, but yeah, it just kind of it's like the double standards, and Thyrsis kind of going, oh yeah, I'll sort this out, it's fine, it will be fine. But you can also kind of see, like, it depends how the actor chooses to play Thyrsis, but I think Thyrsis could also just be like, okay, shut up, I'll do it, just stop talking about her. I've had enough of listening to you. But I think it depends on how you sort of, how you interpret it.
Yeah, and the repetition from well, both of them to a degree of names. I mean, it's certainly from an Amyntas point of view. There's a sort of sense of, well, that's what young love is like. It's just that you just keep saying the name, and all the thing, and it's just everything bubbles over and moves, and it's this sort of oh God, I'm going to kill myself because I can't see her, and it all went horribly wrong. It was the worst first date ever. Oh my God. And so it's very teenagery as well. There's a real teenage vibe to this, which again makes me sort of forgive the not cool stuff, because that's the way the story's working. But maybe let's just set you up, by the way, people. This is going to get a little darker, by the way, as we go on. So just beware of that. We're going to go into some darker places. So maybe we shouldn't yet. Very briefly, Rachael, then Eric, then we will move into Act 2.
Yeah, I was going to say that speech that he was giving about how he feels about Phillis, we've definitely had another scene like that. And one of the other pastorals we did, only the guy was raging and seething, and he was over his mourning period of the relationship, and he was in some other step of grief, of anger, of being like rah against it. And I wonder if we're going to see him move from sadness into anger over these things, and bring some entitlement into this. So
we haven't seen that yet, so let's see. Eric.
I was just going to say that it's interesting how the chorus speech basically introduces the concept of honor, and how it's kind of like, instead of going, oh yes, the gods intervened, and which would be the sort of biblical take on it, sort of like the gods, God here being like sort of Adam and Eve story, where you've got the sort of shame and honor and so on and so forth. Honor intervened rather than anything else, which is quite an interesting concept.
Okay, let's find out what happens in Act 2. So, yeah, this energy might get a little darker as we go into Act 2. Scene 1, enter the Satyr alone.
This same foolish bee's but a bee, and bee's but a small thing. Yet this buzzing bee with a small mouth maketh a great wound. But what's less than love, that lurketh in every corner, every small, small nook, and hides himself as a false thief, sometimes under an air, and sometimes under an eyelid. Yet this least, least love, when he smiteth, maketh a great wound, great, great mortal wound, great cureless wound in a lover. My flesh is naught but a mark all over pricked with her arrows, my body's naught but a wound, my bowels naught but a bleeding. O love, nay not love, that love unlovely requiteth. Love was as ill called to love as this proud, paltry Phillis was well called Phillis. Disdainful Phillis in ill is, ill to her own self first, and always ill to another. And this mountain bird, Montanus' daughter I should say, was well called Phillis, since hill-born Phillis a hill is. Wild waste hills and woods and mountains serve for a harbor unto the ravenous brood of wolves, bears, slippery serpents, and hillish Phillis makes her fair breast as a lodging for foul pride, fell sprite, and most implacable anger. Worse beasts, far more worse than wolves, bears, slippery serpents. These with the prey are pleased, but she's not moved with a prayer. If that I fetch her flowers, fresh fragrant flowers from the forest, my fresh fragrant flowers, oh spite, with a scorn she rejecteth, for cause her fair cheeks with fairer flowers be adorned. If that I bring in a dish queen apples unto my dear queen, dish and queen apples, oh grief, with a mock she renounceth, for cause her bosom with fruit far sweeter aboundeth. If that I range by the woods and fields, and gather her honey, honey and honeycomb, oh death, with a flout she refuseth, for cause her sweet mouth more sugared honey affordeth. Oh, then Phillis, alas, if my poor state can afford thee, naught but what thyself mayst have more lovely within thee. Take myself for a gift. I'll give myself to my Phillis. And why should Phillis disdain this gift that I give her? My face is not foul. My looks are not to be loathed. Yesterday I beheld myself when I walked by the seashore, when seas were calmed, when winds their rage had omitted, my sanguine countenance with moisture lively replenished, bristled breast, brawned arms, and shoulders sturdily squared are all signs of strength and marks of manliness only. And if Phillis doubt, let Phillis try what is in me. What should Phillis do with a curled pate paltry cockney? What with a smooth-faced fool, with a carpet squire, with a milksop? What with a piping goose, with a whistling boy, with a minstrel? Girls indeed, and girls in show, effeminate each way? If perchance Phillis, this chance may easily happen, should encounter a wolf, or fell she a bear, or a wild boar, then farewell, minions, then bristled breasts be the best men. Oh, but alas, Phillis doth know right well that I want not man's face or man's heart, But gold and silver I have not. Gold and silver I want. And this makes Phillis abhor me. Country learns of town to be bought, and every malkin looks for a purse of silver or a ring, no less than a lady. Here is an age of gold indeed. Gold only triumpheth. Gold only triumpheth. Gold rules and o'errules from a milkmaid unto an empress. Thou wicked wight that first taught'st maids to be marchands, and madest girls sell love. Oh, let thy grave be a dungeon for foul sprites and snakes. Oh, let thy damnable ashes feel both wind and rain, and bones lie all to be scattered here and there by the fields, bones bruised of every footman, trodden of every beast, accursed of all the beholders. This wretch noble love did abase, when he made it a hireling, made it a slave of gold, made it a monstrous hydra, monster of all monsters that land or water affordeth. But what mean I to curse in vain, since every creature useth such weapons as nature gave to defend him? Claws to the greedy lion, and foaming tusk to the wild boar, winged eggs to a hart, and pleasing face to a woman. Why doest I not then deal according unto my nature? Why do I not show force, since nature frames me to forcing? I'll take by violence and rape those joys from the proud girl, which are due to my love, and Phillis stoutly denieth. When she begins herself in wonted well to be washing, Cylon showed me the well, farewell, well worthy a fair lass. I'll rush out from a bush, where first I'll lie as in ambush, and take her napping when I see occasion offered. If that I once can roll my hand in her hair, let her hardly scratch and bite and whine, she'll never escape from my clutches, till, for a worthy revenge, her blood my blade be a bathing.
Exit the Satyr. Act 2, Scene 2. Enter Daphne and Thyrsis.
Thyrsis, I know too well that tender-minded Amyntas hath long loved this girl, and long may love her, I fear me. And as I told thee before, my helping hand did I always, and will now much more for thy sake, lend to Amyntas. But more soon may one make gentle a bear or a tiger, and tame young wild bulls, than learn young girls any reason. Girls as fond as fair, whose rude simplicity knows not how their eye arrows can pierce men's heart in a moment.
Simple. I never yet could see so simple a woman, but was most expert, though but new crept from the cradle, in these cosneting tricks, and knew her face to be framing, now with a smile to allure, and now to repel with a frowning.
What skilful mistress taught them this mystery, Thyrsis?
As though thou knowest not, that mistress which did in old time take young birds from the nest, and taught them for to be flying, bull to rebut with a horn, and scaled fish to be swimming, and proud heart peacock her painted train to be spreading.
What's her name?
Daphne.
Fie, that's impossible.
Why? Is not Dame Daphne now thrown you to be deemed a mistress, sufficient to instruct 10,000 such bonny lasses, though in truth they want no skill, nor need any mistress, coy by kind and proud by birth, and surly by nature. Yet nurse and mother contend this folly further, and so make in time young cockerel like to the old crow.
Well crowed, gentle cock, your song may chance be requited. But to the matter in hand, in truth I remember one odd toy, Thyrsis, that makes me scarcely resolved whether Phillis feign and make but a show of us in place, or for a truth doth mean as in outward show she pretendeth. For last day, when I went to the green field near to the city, Phillis sat down by the brook that runs by the green field, and so her countenance composed, as though she required counsel from that brook, and would, be advised by the water, how to be disposing and how to be daintily ordering gold-wired hair on her head, and how with skill to be setting kohl on gold-wired hair, and how at last to be sticking flowers in a golden kohl. Her lap with flowers was abounding. And now takes up a rose, and straightway takes up a lily, and compares her cheeks to the rose and neck to the lily, and then smiles for joy, seeing her lovely triumphant cheeks more red than a rose, and neck more white than a lily, and disdains poor flowers, and thus seems them to be scorning. Foolish paltry herbs, your pied coats naught to my countenance, your flowers naught to my face, your bravery naught to my beauty. Foolish paltry weeds, I do bear you often about me for your own disgrace, and not for a grace to my person, that your fading flowers may serve as a foil for a Phillis. As she was all this while pruning herself by the water, prinking and pranking, at last by chance she reflected her bright beams sideward, and then saw well that I saw her, and was ashamed and blushed, and let fair Lily be fallen. More that Daphne laughed, more Phillis still was a blushing. More that Phillis blushed, more Daphne still was a laughing. And yet her hair half tressed, half untressed, well she remembered, and with a stealing eye to the water glass she repaired, spying whether I spied, and sees herself to be undressed, and yet likes herself, seeing herself to be seemly though undressed, for I saw, yet would not seem to be seeing.
Peace, peace, good Daphne, this no news. Come to Amyntas.
No news? Yes, marriest, that no such matter in old time ever afore was seen. When Daphne was but a damsel, Daphne was not so. But world now waxeth an old world, grows to be wayward now, and peevish like to an old man.
In those days, town birds flew not so fast to the country, nor country lasses did gad so much to the city. Now all's confounded, now fashions all to be mingled, all to be mangled quite. And every Madge is a mistress, all's turned upside down. But may not Amyntas and bonny lass Phillis yet talk once friendly together by Daphne's good means, and condescend to a parley?
Thyrsis, I am not sure, she's too flatly denying.
And he, alas, poor fool, is too fondly desiring.
Then let him ask, entreat, importune, nay, let him offer, yea, offer violence and take no nay. For a woman loves to be wooed of a man, thou knowest well, Thyrsis. A woman runs, and yet so runs, as though she desired to be o'errun. Says no, yet so as no seems to be no. Strives, and yet so strive as though she desired to be vanquished. Woman's like to a shade that flies, yet lies by the subject, like to a bee that never strives, if sting be removed. Thou seest, Thyrsis, I talk as a plain wench unto a plain friend.
Then, good plain Daphne, it's more than time to be plain now. Help me to help our friend, poor, hapless and friendless Amyntas.
Well, to be plain indeed, and end this matter in one word, Phillis goes with me now by and by to the brave well. Mighty Diana's well, where large-armed ash to the hunting nymphs gives cooling shade. There Phillis shall be presented, naked, stark naked, to the open view of Amyntas.
And what then?
What then? Then I think thus much to a wise man will seem sufficient to this too much for a fonkin.
Now I do know thy mind, but I doubt lest fearful Amyntas have not so much heart as boldly to offer an onset.
Then let Amyntas stay till another seek to prevent him.
If that he were so served, he deserved well to be served.
But to thyself, Thyrsis, wilt still be a boy or a bachelor? Were it not far better to be a husband or to be a lover?
When the Thyrsis sees that love's not a plague to a lover, then shall Daphne see that Thyrsis will be a lover. But whilst hateful love with tears and fears is abounding, love who will for me let another learn to be a mourning. Thyrsis enough has mourned.
But he hath not joyed enough yet.
No such joys I desire.
But love can force the resister.
No force, I'll keep back.
And then love hasteneth onward.
I'll run,
Love hath wings.
but short wings in the beginning.
Lovers feel not love when love is first a beginning, and when love's once felt, it's too late then to be running.
But let not my love rest, till again we chance to be meeting. And let Amyntas now, for he most needs, first to be relieved. I'll seek him straight away and bring, if I can, the retiring bear to the stake.
I'll go, but this was far from my meaning.
And if I guess not amiss, lo, yonder he comes, with a downcast look and a wandering pace and a look fit for Amyntas.
Exit Daphne. Thyrsis remains as we're going to Act 2, Scene 3. Oh, we were having so much fun. Anyway, enter Amyntas to Thyrsis.
Thyrsis gave good words. I'll see what's done for Amyntas. And if nothing's done, then afore that I seem to be undone, my self-murdering hand shall reave this breath from Amyntas, even in Phillis' sight, that like as she now delighteth herself with this wound, love's wound that cleaves to my heart root, wound of her own fair eyes, so may she be freshly triumphing at this gaping wound with purpled gore that aboundeth, wound of mine own hands, last wound of murdered Amyntas.
Leave off thy mourning. Thyrsis brings news to Amyntas.
What news? Life or death?
Life, love, bliss, joy to Amyntas. If that Amyntas does joy, bliss, love, life be a meeting. But then he must be a man, not a mom, man fully resolved, and not to shrink with a shower as faint heart fool or a dastard.
And what great courage or what resolution is this?
If that thy Phillis should wander alone in a desert walled about with rocks of monstrous hugeness, where sharp-tusked bears and tigers only resort, wouldst thou go to thy love by this so fearful passage?
Yea, with a better will than girls or boys to the stool ball.
If thy Phillis were with a thievish company compassed, and saw naught but swords and glistening armour about her, wouldst thou go to thy love through this same company thievish?
Yea, with greater joy than thirsting heart to the fountain.
Yet for such exploit more courage will be required.
I'll with a good will go through scorching flames of a furnace. I'll through swelling streams increased with snow from the mountains. I'll through damnable hell, through loathsome Styx to my Phillis, if that can be a hell where heaven's joy Phillis abideth. But say, show me all.
Hark then.
Tell speedily, Thyrsis.
Thy love sits by a well, sits naked, alone by a wellspring. Phillis sits by a well and stays for gentle Amyntas. Dost thou go to thy love, and wilt thou go to thy Phillis?
What? Doth my dear life, doth my love sit by a wellspring? What? Doth Phillis alone and naked stay for Amyntas?
None else but Daphne, and Daphne works for Amyntas. Otherwise she alone and naked stays for Amyntas. Naked but.
But what? This vile butt murdereth Amyntas.
But Phillis knows not that Amyntas comes to be by the wellspring.
Oh, wellspring of woe! This cold conclusion endeth all my hope conceived, and draws confusion onward. Oh, pitiless Thyrsis, was soul-tormented Amyntas not yet plagued enough, but thou must heap on a new plague.
If thou mean to be ruled, thou mayest be a happy Amyntas.
How ruled?
Take that good which opportunity offereth.
God forbid that I should take such opportunity offered as to attempt anything displeasing unto my Phillis. Yet did I never thing offensive unto my Phillis, but that I loved her. Alas, yet, alas, she enforced me to love her. That fault's hers, not mine, and beauty to blame, not Amyntas.
If thou couldst leave love, would thou leave to be so loving? That by not loving thou mightst please thy bonny Phillis.
That will I never say, Thyrsis, nor never imagine. Love will not consent that I ever leave to be loving.
Thou wilt love her then, though in despite of her own heart.
In despite? Oh no, yet needs must I be loving.
What then, against her will?
Love wills so, if she be willful.
Take then against her will that which, though in the beginning seems to be painful for a while, yet proves to be joyful in the ending.
Thy long experience, O Thyrsis, makes thee be talking, makes thee be discoursing of love. But freshman Amyntas is possessed with love, and love must frame him an answer, love that clogs heart-tied and tongue-tied lover Amyntas.
Why then, wilt not go?
Yes,
Whither?
straight to my long home, if no help but this can bring any joy to Amyntas.
And is this nothing? Would Daphne send for Amyntas, unless that Phillis seemeth in some part to be willing? And perchance Phillis doth know herself that Amyntas comes to the well indeed, but will not seem to be knowing. Now, if thou wouldst have her full consent to be uttered, and mind expressed, which every woman abhorreth, where is then thy desire, thy Phillis still to be pleasing? And if Phillis will that Amyntas' joy be Amyntas, theft not Phillis' gift, what further seeketh Amyntas?
Oh, but alas, Who knows that Phillis liketh Amyntas?
And who knows that for truth that Phillis likes not Amyntas, and an equal doubt that part is best to be taken, which to the party's mind is most comfortable always. Therefore, come.
Stay yet.
For what? Time passes, Amyntas.
Oh, stay, good Thyrsis. Let's here consult for a while yet.
We'll consult by the way of things that seems to be needful. Whoso thinks many things bringeth sore to a fortunate ending.
Exit Thyrsis and Amyntas. Let's see what the chorus says.
O heart ennobling great love, where shall we be learning these thy sacred laws? In what school must we be trained up to thy high conceits? Or what so skillful a master possibly may unfold those supreme thoughts of a lover which his soul possess, whilst with thy wings in a moment his mind mounts the skies and crystal mantled Olympus. Neither learned Athens nor great frameworthy Lycaeus could love's force express, nor love's perfection utter. Neither Castalian muses, nor great god Apollo, nor rhyme-right singers could once aspire to the thousandth part of those joys which in a lover's breast be abounding. Their voice is not a voice of fire, they sing but a cold song and voice unfit for love's unspeakable ardor. So then love's own voice is the fittest voice for love's lay. So then love himself is best expressed by his own self. Love learns rural wits and base-born breasts to be reading heart-burning secrets and wonders, daintily written in fair flaming eyes by the hand of lovely Cupid. Love, oh strange eloquence of love, with a sigh, with a half speech, interrupted speech, confused speech of a lover, sooner a tiger's heart to in true compassion urgeth than a greater a secret smart, and inward passion uttereth, than trope turned tale, or rhyming ditty derived from foolhardy poets, or vain-head rhetoricasters. Nay, those silent looks and lovely regards of a lover more than 1,000 words express those pangs of a lover. Let those famous clerks with an endless toil be perusing Socratical writings. Two fair eyes teach me my lesson, and what I read in those I do write in the bark of the beech tree. Beech tree, better book than 1,000 dainty devices.
Exit chorus. End of Act 2, and you'll be glad to know that's the end of Act 2, and that this plot line, by and large, sort of disappears relatively soon. It will still be touched upon, but you'll be glad that this doesn't get developed much further. This feels like an object lesson in how to describe the patriarchy. It feels like this would be a very useful educational tool to describe how a certain mindset leads to really horrific things. That was quite traumatic. We were really enjoying it. Act 1, okay, it was that was an awkward moment, but we could, maybe it was, then you go, no, the mindset sort of really leans into that. And yeah, the two advisors to our two protagonists get together and come up with a fucking awful idea. What is in Daphne's mind on this front? Where is Daphne coming from here? I can sort of understand the sort of mentality of Thyrsis. In terms of a logic, I do not understand the logic of why Daphne is leaning into this. From what we got earlier, I do not understand. Rachael.
Yeah, this I don't know what it is about pastorals. Maybe just because it was so popular in paintings, but also our Artemisia Gentileschi. She was famously raped by her tutor, and she was calling out for her friend who had helped organize it, had helped set her up. So I think there's some realness to this friend of hers throwing her under the bus. in this very violent way. And there's very, I think there's something here that, I don't know. I don't know, but there's something in this that's very pre-feminism or pre-women's having any rights to their own autonomy at all. And at the same time, this is kind of relevant just because today in America, we got, you woke up to the headline of Roe v. Wade is drafted to be like revoked. And then also I wanted to say about the Satyr, another, I don't remember the name of the painting and I've been trying to look it up, but there's actually a painting of like a Satyr and his wife and child hiding in like the bushes from a man beating his wife, because it was like the high German Renaissance and the Italians kept calling them satyrs. And they were saying, well, you call us wild people of the woods, but we're not raping and beating women. So I think this is an interesting, I don't know, it's just interesting for me, the juxtaposition between that painting that I can't send to anybody in the chat because I can't remember the name, and just the traditional sexual violence, I guess, of this satyr that's being presented. But this is kind of just bowling me over at the moment with all the violence that seems like it came out of nowhere.
Well, I mean, there is. I mean, certainly the Satyr is a slightly different element. I mean, the Satyr of this is a different outsider figure, and in that sense, he was sort of, when he appeared, it felt like, okay, here is an outsider who is a threat to this situation. But when you get to the two friends of or confidants of our protagonists are in this, you're putting forward this idea, and at the same time having some sort of flirty talk. I mean, that's what I found really disturbing. Not that they started with some flirty talk, but having just suggested, hey, let's organise a sexual assault. Hi, you still feeling a bit time to do some flirty talk? And I'm sort of going, you switched back there? You switched back to that mode. Yeah. And then Amyntas comes on and says, Thyrsis gave good words. No, he did not. He did not give good words. Sorry. Other thoughts from the room? Who does anyone want to leap in? Do we want to? I don't know. Eric.
Well, also satyrs were famous for like their sort of not necessarily sexual prowess, but their sexual appetites. Sort of the whole, Orpheus and Eurydice thing was basically, well, not started by a satyr, but definitely sort of, her death was supposed to, because she stepped on a snake while being chased by a satyr and all that stuff. So it's not exactly a new trope for this kind of thing. I think what just creeped me out is just like sort of Amyntas going, yes, I will go find her naked in the woods, and that won't be disturbing at all. And he had a moment of hesitation though, where it's like, what if she doesn't like me back? But then Thyrsis kind of smoothed that over, and it's okay.
Yeah, there's almost a potential that this scene is set up there as a test for Amyntas here, and it almost looks like it's going to pay off. It's still awkward and icky, but then it doesn't really. I mean, it doesn't say that he's actually going but yeah, it's not a pass for Amyntas there. I don't think he's passed this test at all. Desna, then Liza.
Yeah, so I think, Robbie, you said you captured it really well earlier when you said it's sort of like this is a textbook situation that you would use to demonstrate patriarchy. But I think what's really thrown me is that Daphne's apparent relationship with Phillis right at the beginning was a bit more like, come on, you just got to learn to love yourself and get out there, and was kind of quite light-hearted, and but it takes this really dark turn, and I suppose it was as true in 1590 as it is now, that sometimes when horrible things happen, people who appear to be trustworthy are instrumental in that, and maybe that's something that doesn't ever change. It's a little bit sad. it's kind of made me feel very down about humanity. This.
And it all started so well, Cupid. Liza.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. I mean, we were talking earlier about satyrs being associated with lust, and they have some of the physical characteristics of men and some of the physical characteristics of goats, and goats are associated with lust as well. At least boy goats are. I'm not sure about goatesses. Rachael.
I think that aren't they known as goatees, or is that something else? No. Okay. Rachael.
No, I was gonna say I forget the name of it, but we've done it like so many times. The one where the lover's heart is put in the golden cup and her dad gives it to her and she drinks the blood. This reminds me of that, because we have the like spirits come in and it's almost like they possess the people. And I wonder if there's a similar thing going on here where Cupido comes in at the top and he like has some, he's instrumental and he's controlling these people and they don't know it. And then the satyr comes in in the same way that the Furies sort of came in Tancred and Gismunda and come and possess them. And they're still calling it love in like a morality way. But it's that sort of play, like they're calling it love, but the motivation is really lust. And I wonder if, to what Liza just said about the goat, I don't know if the devil is associated with the goat yet or something like that, but maybe they're doing a sort of morality play and dressing it in these things so that it's not like a morality play, and they're not going to, drum up any sort of religious talk or fighting.
And one of the most interesting things about the satyr's speech is his description of himself, because I would think that if this play were performed, a majority of the actors performing it might be boys, or might be younger men at least, and the satyr describes himself with the physical characteristics of very much an adult man, with body hair and broad shoulders and a stocky figure, and there's some strange there is some strange sort of, I mean, a friend of mine is writing their thesis on the embodiment of the early modern actor, and there's a sort of strange relationship of the actor to their own body and to other bodies in the company there, that a boy actor really is, perhaps not necessarily explicitly, but implicitly, a boy actor is in this period sort of a different gender from an adult man, or a creature, rather like the people in the golden, like the daemons in the Golden Compass, who are shape changers when they're young. Maybe boys are self-transformative in a way that adult men can't be. Anyway, leaving all, this is all really idle speculation, but about Amyntas, I think it's still not clear that he consents to the whole scenario that Thyrsis is proposing. When he says, I will go straight to my long home, I think he still means killing himself. That he would kill himself rather than do this, or rather than displease Phillis by doing this. For 1 second, Thyrsis asks the right question, which is, if you would do anything to make her happy, would you stop loving her if that was the only thing that would make her happy? And then Amyntas is like, no, I can't, because in TV sitcoms, there's this, when the writers write the TV sitcoms and think out scenarios, there's this metaphor they call the idiot ball. And they're like, okay, which character is carrying the idiot ball this week? And the idiot ball is some sort of factor that makes a character behave out of character. And in this play, that factor is love. It makes people behave in weird ways and do things that they maybe otherwise would not. So Amyntas can't stop loving her, and Thyrsis quite tellingly seizes on this, saying, oh, okay, so you love her against her will to begin with, against her clearly expressed will. So why would you have a problem with forcing yourself on her physically against her will? And that, again, it's troubling because, it's troubling, but it's also telling, because how stalkers justify their stalker behavior is by saying, but I'm in love. Troubling, scary, dark waters.
Yeah, and actually, that's something about the pastoral. It is telling here that upon being asked that question, Amyntas uses the word consent. That the pastoral is actually darker than you think of it. There tends to be this idea, we'll go back to some sort of Sylvanian idyll and it will all be lovely. But actually, nature can be even controlled nature, like with shepherds do, can be a lot more violent and dangerous place than one is thinking. The satyr, I don't think literally comes in and does what happens in Tancred, there's a sort of get out of possession, ? Is it Bob in charge, or is Bob just with them? The satyr here maybe is more just a note of this is where the play is going. The satyr will actually engage with the plot going forward. Some spoilers there. It's not that the satyr is just a thematic ad here, but it's true that there is an interesting parallel with the later Tancred, or the earlier Tancred. No, it's earlier than this. That it opens with a Cupid setting things up, and we get this other disrupting figure coming in as well, full of malice and a very interesting speech pattern. Just to say that the plot will go in a different direction by and large. So don't worry. Don't have nightmares. There's that debate quality going on here. It's not a good debate because it's very badly put together. But there is some resistance from Amyntas. It's just not really as much as we'd like. Eric.
What I find interesting is that the chorus goes, love learns rural wits and base-born breasts to be reading heart-burning secrets, and so on and so forth. But it's almost like there's the chorus is saying, these people are not really qualified to understand love or express love properly, which is why this kind of thing, love would be expressed in a violent manner. Whereas, if they were princes, of course, it would be fine. But I don't know if that's kind of what is being said there, but it's just an interesting line.
So, yeah, we will be coming back to this at some point in the future. I'll just very briefly go around the room for any final thoughts. Feel free to not have any and just move on if you wish. I think we said quite a lot. I think one of the big questions that comes out of where we currently are in the play is where the play then goes and what it does with what it's set up here, which raises all sorts of questions about what is doable with this text, with which I don't think at this point we can answer. Liza, do you have any final thoughts to throw in?
Yeah, this play started entertainingly and has gone to some pretty troubling places, and I'm interested to see where it goes next.
Yeah. It's raised all sorts of interesting questions now in my mind about the patronage of the Countess of Pembroke for this particular work.
Oh my God! Did she slap this guy upside the head?
Well, again,
I hope she did.
Or has she on some level internalized some of this as well? It's all sorts of questions that this raises. Tom, any final thoughts?
Just like everybody else, deeply saddened that it goes into this, she'll say no, and she'll run away, but she wants to be overtaken really, and it'll all be better in the end because but and it's not that old in the sense that, you know, you still got judges sort of like saying that she was asking for it type of thing. So yeah, sad. But as you say, let's see where the play goes and see if there's any honor that comes through.
Desna, any final thoughts?
No, nothing to add. Yeah, I want to see where it goes, and yes, just it'd be good to see how it ends up.
Eric, any final thoughts?
I was trying to figure out the internal consistency of the sort of, well, because obviously I think it was Thyrsis or Daphne, one of the two, who mentions, what if your lover what if your lover Phillis was beset by thieves and stuff? And I'm like, she's a huntress, she's gonna kick their asses. But I mean, obviously, yeah, it just kind of made me think twice. But I don't know, yeah, this place is doing some very shady things at the moment. I was expecting something, you know, pretty and pastoral and not disturbing, but yeah, we went into the Black Mirror universe, I think.
Rachael, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, the differences of ideas that this is presenting, I think you could have a lot of conversation if you put this on. Even if you were showing it to younger people, maybe young adults or something like that, and you could have conversations like, let's talk about love bonds versus trauma bonds, because if he winds up raping this woman, that's not a love, that's trauma bonds. And then the way this puts forward love as possession versus love as partners, as equals. And then also this, him saying that he's got this sort of evergreen love. It's, if he's loving her one-sidedly, and if it was actual one-sided love and not stalking and creepy as he is, the sort of way this is trying to equate some sort of unconditional love or one-sided love as something that should be without boundaries, where, love thrives more with boundaries than without them, this is trying to make the argument for that there should be no sort of, it's making the argument for all's fair in love and war, which isn't really true, because, I mean, if you're going to destroy somebody, then that's not, I don't know. It's really troublesome, but I think it could be great. And we've had so much conversation over it, and it's made me think a lot.
Yes, leaning into the educational aspect of it, maybe the direction we take it, because it definitely needs framing of some description, because I don't think I'd send an audience into this without some prep. So, all that remains, we will return to this for the last 3 acts sometime in the future. All that remains to thank all the wonderful readers for their wonderful reading. Don't have nightmares out there, people, and goodbye. Renounce hoblobs.